Hey everyone, thank you for joining us today. Today's webinar topic is a little bit different than ones we've done in the past. This one's focusing a little bit more on the project manager side, sort of after you win the job. And we have found, Brian's been working with a lot of our customers recently that have project managers that are using Electrical Bid Manager to run a bid a little bit differently to help them get to know the job and to help them prep to start labor scheduling and material ordering and whatnot. Brian's going to go into much more detail here in just a minute. But first, I just wanted to remind everyone to like the video, subscribe to us, do everything that helps us get out in front of more people, please. And you can use the chat off to the right if you're logged into YouTube, or if you're on a different platform, you can ask questions in the comment box, I think, and chat over there, and we'll catch it and answer your question throughout this webinar. So now I think it's time for me to hand it over to Brian. You ready?
I'm ready. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining our session. Like Derek said, this is a kind of a focus on the project manager's role and their use of EBM in that role. I'll just kind of state right off the top that I am not self-taught and I'm certainly not classroom taught. I attribute almost 99% of the things I've learned about the electrical contracting industry, especially about estimating and software, to working with our customers. Literally thousands of them over the years. Shops that have 2 employees and shops that have a couple hundred. So a lot of this comes again from not only my recent experience, but my experience over the years with how companies use project managers, and I see good and bad. So I'm going to try to impart what I think are some good principles with how you can utilize your project managers and how they can best utilize EBM, Electrical Bid Manager. So typically when a project manager gets a job, they're going to have an estimate that was either done by another person. Maybe it's an estimator who does nothing but besides estimating, or it could be their own estimate. It could be an estimate that they've done and they're probably more familiar with it, but still it needs to be reviewed. Even if you've done the estimate, you're going to need to go back in and probably look at it in more detail. One of the questions you probably need to answer right off the top, even if you're the person that's done the estimate, is whether it needs to be re-input or whether you can edit the original job. And so often is the case, the project could have changed not only a little bit, but a lot since the time you bid it. So it may be just a requirement to go back in and either re-input the job or significantly start from the beginning. Again, you can edit the original job. It'll just depend on maybe the scope of the job. If it's a big job, there may be things that need to be broken out differently. But re-inputting the job has a real benefit in that you become more familiar with the job. If nothing else, you may catch some mistakes. I was working with a particular company a couple months ago, and I was a brand new project manager, and we were inputting the job. And one of the first things we found that they had missed a whole area of linear tape LED fixtures. Not a huge problem, but obviously the sooner you know that, the better. Um, those are the kind of things that you'll catch if you re-input the job. Uh, and again, it gets you real familiar with it. You might find some areas that you need to pay special attention to. Could even be things that need to be submitted uh, for additional cost, especially if the job has changed since the time the estimate was produced. So it's almost a requirement to either totally re-input the job or certainly go back in and edit the original detail and dig into the details of the estimate. One of the things that I think doesn't happen as often as it should is realizing how important EBM can be in helping you order material. A lot of the time, the project manager or the electricians in the field just take the job and start working. But EBM has a lot of help it can give you before they even order the material. There is a material list option in EBM. It's over here under reports. It's the material list option. And the nice thing about this option is you can do part of the job or all the job. If you just need your feeder wire, you can just check this little box that says I need to review what I've got in my takeoff for the feeder wire. We can save this separately for now. So if I need to come back and run the report, it'll be ready, all set up. And then it just gives me a breakdown of my feeder wire. Now, when I send this to a supplier, maybe to get pricing or just to get the the material ordered, there's an option here that I like to see. Go back to material list here. For some reason it's a little slow. Okay, so I'm going to check this little option that says line after quantity. And then when I go to the material list report, you can see it puts a little line over here at the end. So if I save this as a PDF and send it over to the supplier, they can write in the quantities or they write in the price if they want to do kind of an old school manual way of getting pricing. But again, it gives you the quantities of every item in your takeoff, and you can break it down, like I said a minute ago, by the area or the what we call the phase of the job. We're going to talk about phases and cost codes in a minute, but just a real simple process of getting a material list is a real easy thing to extract from EBM. Now, again, if the project manager has gone back in and either redone the estimate from scratch or edited the estimate, then that material list will be even more accurate. Like those fixtures that were missed will be on the list. So, take a look at your estimate, have the project manager use the estimate for ordering material. Labor scheduling is one of the really important parts, responsibilities, obviously, the project manager. One of the primary responsibilities of the project manager is to have the job come in on budget, especially as far as the labor is concerned. Um, and again, EBM has some very simple reports you can use to help you with scheduling your labor. Um, in the job totals, for example, I'm going to go to the detailed one. So you can look at it here on the report. Let's go to, oh, I need a different job. Sorry. Yeah, no, this is good. This is fine. Oh, I see. Okay, I need to re-extend the job because I've got only the feeders right now.
Mm.
There we go. Okay, so we got the whole job here now. Now you can either get into the reports or you can just go to the job totals here and it will tell us the hours by phase or what a lot of people call the cost code. If I go here, this job has almost 1,000 hours, but I can see by phase how many hours I've got allocated for the different areas. So we'll just take lighting as an example. I've got 229 hours. Again, whether that's 20 hours or 2,000 hours, it gives you an idea of how many hours you've got budgeted for that. And then obviously that's going to be important or helpful when you plan your labor scheduling. So depending on how many people you've got available and depending on the time frame available, we obviously need to know how many hours we've got budgeted to be able to allocate the labor resources. And again, you could do it for any part of the job. Now, these phase totals, I think it's important to understand, come out of the program automatically. I think a lot of people don't even understand that. When you extend the job, it automatically groups the materials by what we call the phases. Again, a lot of people might be more familiar with cost codes. And again, these are really helpful for tracking your job as far as the cost is concerned. But you don't have to do anything to total the job that way. It happens automatically. So your labor scheduling is right there in EBM to help you with how to budget your labor and how to plan your labor for the different parts of the job. Now, if you've broken out the job differently, for example, let's just take a quick look at that. If I need to look at just the hours for the site, again, I'm just going to clear it. Now, these breakdowns were automatically created by taking the job off with PlanSwift because every entry you make goes to the particular page. So I can get a quick report on just the site. Again, I'll save it. And if I go to my job totals, I'll see how many hours I have, how much material I have, my whole project just on the site. So this is a job, obviously, there's only 1,000 hours, but 420 of them, 28 of them are just in the site. Those are the kind of things that the project manager really needs to get a handle on right away, because if half their budgeted hours are on the site, they need to jump on that job right at the beginning. You don't want to be paying attention to that when the job is two-thirds of the way done and find out that you've already missed your projections because you didn't do a good job managing the site. Okay. So all related to all this is the job costing and tracking projections. And again, EBM gives you those numbers depending on how you've taken off the job and how you organize the job. So again, a lot of the time the project manager may go in there and organize his takeoff just for job costing and tracking purposes. And then when you're in EBM again, you can tell the program whether you want to look at the whole job or whether you want to look at particular breakouts on the job. We spend quite a bit of time on our training uh, and in our videos showing people how to break out a job, because it can, there's no, it's just up to your imagination and your needs. How do you break out a job? You can do it by building, by floor, by site work versus inside work. And what I think a lot of people don't understand is a lot of that happens automatically, especially if you're using electronic takeoff for PlanSwift. It's going to automatically categorize things by the page you took it off on, and then EBM will automatically categorize things by the phase or cost code. Again, how you break out the job is going to be something that the project manager is going to have to deal with, depending on what the estimator has done at the time they submitted the job. If there was an alternate or alternates submitted with the bid, then obviously the project manager needs to get familiar with that, see what alternates were accepted or need to be approved, that kind of thing. And again, if the project manager broke or the estimator broke out the job by floor or by building or interior versus exterior, maybe the project manager will need to revise that or look at it a little bit differently as far as the areas. Again, that's all a breakout capability of EBM. Again, our goal is today not to get into the specifics of how to do that, just to let you know that it can be done. It's a relatively straightforward part of the program. Just have to understand how it works and get in there and do it. Again, the project manager is really key in that role. I mentioned at the beginning that most of the things I learned and about this industry and about estimating and project manager come from the customers, and that's one of the things I really had kind of my eyes open to with the customer I've been working here with in Southern California. They started when I started working with them. There was about 100 employees, I think 3 or 4 estimators and 5 or 6 project managers. And their goal was to get the project managers, not only the estimators, some of them needed a little bit of extra training, but the project managers totally up to speed on EBM so they could use it as a tool to help them manage the projects. And then about a few months later, they bought another company that had another 100 employees, so we had a whole another group of estimators and project managers that had to get up to speed. None of them had any experience with EBM. The original group did have some experience, so it's been an interesting experience seeing how that's all phased into the growing the company and how they run the company. Change orders are again something that almost every project manager will be involved in. They're going to need to actually do the takeoff usually, or if somebody in the field does the takeoff and tells the project manager, "Here's what we need to get a change order submitted for," then the project manager needs to be involved in that process. Probably the best person to prepare the change order is the project manager, because they're familiar with all the details on what's being revised or added, or uh, what additional costs need to be submitted for a change order. That's a really key role of the project manager. And doing the change order is like doing an estimate. Typically, it's a smaller project. It's a part of the project, but the project manager needs to know how to run EBM just to create and submit a change order. One of the key things about project management and tracking and all that is really being able to get to the point where you can catch cost overruns before it's too late. You know, it doesn't do any good to get to the end of the project, or let's even just take one part of the project, like doing the lighting installation. If you've got 500 hours budgeted and your people in the field tell you that you're uh, halfway done, and you find out you've used 75% of your hours, obviously it's too late. So the earlier you start tracking that and monitoring what the field tells you versus what's in the estimate, the better. If you wait to the end and you find out you're 25% over budget on your labor hours for the entire job, or even any part of the job, then obviously it's too late. So you really need to get on that right away. You know, the first minute you start looking at the job is to look at your budgets for the different parts of the job, so that when you're tracking now, hopefully you have a job costing system in place that will do that. You know, I work with a lot of customers that don't track anything besides the total cost of the job. So, you know, the best they can do is on an overall basis, look at their projections. A good job costing system, and unfortunately, QuickBooks doesn't really do this, will give you a projection based on your field information. They can, you know, you can go into the job costing part of any of the good job costing programs and tell it you're 30% done, and it'll give you a cost project, or a cost to completion. It's often called a work in progress report. So it'll help you look at each job and see whether it's over or under budget. Again, it's based on the field reporting accurately on what percentage of the job is done, and that's not easy, but it's something that you got to have in place. Otherwise, you'll never catch a job before it's too late. Um,
Can we give
that-
a shout out to our sister company, Job Power?
yeah, that's a real good example of a accounting program that takes it that step further than QuickBooks. That's one of the limitations that people run into in QuickBooks. If they're really trying to do a good job of job costing, then QuickBooks just, that's where it stops. It can tell you after the job, you know, whether you're under over budget. It can even tell you by phase or cost code with whether you're over or under budget, but it doesn't really give you a good ability to project based on the current percentage of completion of the entire job or any part of the job.
Yep, and we also have a customer of ours, Dennis Thomas, who found that he needed a system to help schedule labor and keep track of material orders and the whole tracking of the results. It's called Estimate Guard. If you want to take a look at that, it takes an export from our software, EBM, and takes that data in. So that's another thing to look at.
Any other questions or comments that we've had come in, Derek?
No, I've just been chatting in the URLs to the company as I referred to, but no,
Okay.
I'm following everything. Your mouse cursor for some reason is doing something a little funny, but
I saw that at
it's
one point.
working.
It was bouncing. It's still bouncing around, actually.
Yeah, it's makes it
Why.
more entertaining for us to watch you. But yeah, no questions. Oh, yeah. So Cecil is asking, can you restate the name of the job costing software you mentioned? Well, Job Power is an construction accounting software that has job costing capability, and it's a sister company of ours, Job Power, and I just linked them in the chat here. It's called either jobpower.com or jobpow.com. Here, I'll throw it in the chat again. They specialize in taking contractors that are using QuickBooks. It's one of their specialties, and helping them transition into a more advanced accounting system. Otherwise, the other system we mentioned was Estimate Guard. It's not an accounting system. It sort of is a bridge to an accounting system and offers data for project management systems and accounting for job costing. But it primarily helps you schedule your labor. Does a lot more than that, though. All right, and we had a question from Harbor Electric. How does this work with 3D takeoffs?
I guess I'm not really sure how to answer that question. I mean, ultimately, whether you take off the job from a two-dimensional or three-dimensional job, you still end up with an estimate that's broken out into phases or areas or that kind of a thing. Um, so I'm not sure the 3D part of it really has any impact on it. The 3D drawings give you a little bit more insight into exactly how to install the material or what material is installed because you can see things you can't see in 2 dimensions. But I think once you've actually done the takeoff, I'm not sure how the 3D part would come into play. Maybe I'm
Yeah, I
not
mean,
understanding something, but
right. I mean, there's probably more data that you have access to do, I guess, maybe a more complete takeoff or more accurate
yeah,
takeoff in
I
some
would think so.
cases.
I think that's
And then,
part of the whole advantage of doing 3D work is that you can get more accurate on your takeoff.
and I think we're open to have people argue with us on this one, but we don't see 3D plans provided for the on the bid side. But I guess then once you win the job, that's when they can be provided, right? And that's where
Yep.
you
And
would.
when I typically see it, it's just for a particular part of the job. It might be a 3D detail on a particular piece of equipment or a particular room, that's in the project where there's expensive equipment or high technology equipment that needs to be very carefully installed and it's a required that 3D can help with the detailed part of the takeoff.
Yeah, I think we're seeing it more and more, but it's a very slow trickle, at least on a lot of jobs that are out there, on a lot of electrical jobs. But good question about the 3D. We'd love to start seeing more 3D um, BIM stuff out there, I think. Yeah, Harbor said yes, you break down the drawing. So it's kind of similar to 2D takeoff, right? Yep, it is coming. Yep. There's just too much data involved. Yeah, we have another sister company called StreamBIM, or the product is called StreamBIM. I think they're out of Norway. In Europe, or at least in Norway and Sweden, 3D BIM is like required. It's extremely it's a lot more popular than it is here in the States. And eventually we'll be working with them to tie into Electrical Bid Manager. All right, yeah. If anybody else has any more questions, we'll be here for a few more minutes. But again, I just wanted to ask if you could hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. We're somewhere over 2,700 followers now, or subscribers. Just helps us get out in front of more electrical contractors. And if you subscribe, you get a little alert, I believe, when we're getting ready to go live, and just as a hey, if you have time to join us. But we do send emails out to remind people that we're trying to do this every month, and share any ideas in chat, in email, on our website, whatever. If you want to see us cover some content that maybe I don't know, you see a lot, or you're challenged with, and you'd like to see us cover a little bit more. And we can dive into things in more detail, laser focus on things as well.
I guess the other thing I wanted to mention, just as a kind of a promotion thing, I'm available to work with your estimators, your project managers, new, experienced, all the above, either virtual, online, or in person. I do a lot of that, and to me, it's the most rewarding thing that I can do is work with individuals because I can address the specific needs. We do some, generic online classroom training. We do in-person classroom training. That's a little more general, kind of geared at the overall audience, but it's also, you can also hire me just to come help you train a person or a whole department or address any customization needs. We can customize the training to whatever you need, whatever scope, an hour, 2 hours here, or 2 or 3 days at your office. We can provide any of those types of help and solution for you.
Yep, Brian's been busy lately. All right. I think we also still do monthly classroom training online. You get your own virtual desktop with all our software, and Brian guides you through best practices. And we have 3 classes that are offered. So take a look at that on our website, or send us your email at sales@visioninfosoft.com, and we'll add you to our list to make sure you get alerts as to when we're doing our online classes. And I think we're going to be in Houston, right? Houston, Texas in September. I don't remember, September, October.
Well, we're going to be in Dallas.
Dallas, that was it.
For the IEC trade show.
Right.
And we'll also be in Philadelphia for the NECA show, and then either right before or right after that, I don't remember, we'll be in Baltimore for in-person classroom training.
Right. So we'll be sending emails out about that, and it'll be posted on our website very soon. Right. If it's not already, it might already be there. Hey, thank you everyone for joining us today. And if you missed the beginning, go ahead and go back and rewind it and catch the beginning. Otherwise, we'll see you next time.
Thank you, everyone.